So memory and addictions. Memory plays a major role in the development of our personality, identity, communication processes, and our core beliefs. The subconscious takes the data from our sensory experiences and processes these for conscious part of our brain to perceive, evaluate, judge, and decide about. These conscious responses are then taken by the subconscious and processed, and thus we end up with thought patterns, emotional responses, behavioral patterns, and core beliefs. By the time we're 8 years old, we're pretty much programmed, and it's especially important in that period between 6 and 8. You're getting programmed. You're creating your models, your beliefs, your personality, your identity, and then you end up with thought patterns.
Yeah, these core beliefs are all developed, like she said, between the ages of 0 and 8 years old, and these are all the roots of the tree. If we're talking metaphorically, you are developed your belief systems. I mean, if you talk about it taking 50 core beliefs for an infant to express an attitude, to smile, right? That's a lot of core beliefs that have been developed. I mean, you figure if you've had a baby, you remember to the first time it smiled, it was pretty close to when it was born. I mean, relatively so. And that's an intense thing to think about, to wrap your mind around, that it takes 50 core beliefs for an infant to express an attitude. And, your subconscious mind is taking in 400 billion bits of data. I know we say this a lot, but it's important to remember. And for at 400 billion bits of data per second, you think about an infant being born processing 400 billion bits of data per second, and subconscious just stores and governs emotions. It governs self-talk and self-image. It governs all automatic learnings and functions. And so as this data is coming in, your subconscious mind is just doing its job. It's storing it, it's filing it. And then your conscious mind, which is the key here, is consciously responding to the data that's being sent up from the subconscious. It's based upon this conscious response that really commands your subconscious to store and file these memories or this data in certain files, right? And when she talks about the emotional aspect of it, that's just the limbic system response. It's the chemical part of the brain, and it's a chemical composition of chemicals that are released and encoded upon your central nervous system firing. And it's literally programming you through your limbic system response to continue to perceive certain events, similar events that are happening in your life, the same way emotionally. And it's pretty interesting how this stuff all comes about for us. Our conscious perception, evaluation, judgment, and decision plays a huge role on the way that we create our reality.
When we call these models and programs our identity and personality, our whole life's experiences can end up just being based on this process alone, not considering providence and intervention from others. Not just a sensory experience, but the conscious perception of the experience plays a large role in the models and programs resulting from the experience. The way you actually perceive your life events and experiences has a greater impact on your subconscious program model than the experience itself. It is very true to look for the good, to look for the lessons to learn, to forgive and see life challenges as an opportunity to grow. Your conscious perception is the master of the programs from your life's experiences. So if you see you being picked on, put down, not capable, not smart enough, or not good enough, and thus your conscious perception, then this is a symbol in the bulk of the program. So when we talk about meta programs too, those are filtering systems the subconscious uses to create these program models. And if we're talking major and minor, it gets deleted by the major meta programs, distorted and then generalized, and then it comes up with a symbol, and then it's a complete program. But what it's talking about is we have these events in our lives, and based upon our conscious response to that event, and we see it all the time, people grow up in the same household, get the same talking to, and based upon their perception of that, based upon their personality, their identity, things they've been through, they're going to have a complete different story to tell about it based upon their own personality and identity. And still, this only gets stored by emotions, right? And your brain will you've heard it all the time, you go to a meeting or to church or you're in a group or watching TV, these certain things stand out to you based upon what you're going through at that time. Versus me and Colby could be sitting in the same meeting and we're going to come out and have completely different things. And you can see it as we talk about this material, the different things that pop up for us based upon what we're currently going through, which what we're talking about is our conscious focus at that time. So based upon what your conscious focus is, your subconscious is just pulling up any data to match what your conscious focus is. So it talks about you going into something and not feeling confident. It doesn't matter if everybody out here sees you as being confident. Based upon your conscious response, you're like, oh, they're looking at me funny. They don't think I know what I'm talking about. Oh my gosh, they're doing this. So whether it's true or not, that becomes your reality. Yep. When we talk about reality, it's real to you because that's what you're creating it to be. Is it true reality? Absolutely not. But it's real to you, so that's what matters. And that creates your response to it. You go through these different things, and that's what holds us captive. With time and memories, it becomes our conscious response to that memory, and we get stuck in these emotional states. It could be a same emotional response, but based upon what your conscious focus is at that time, it's going to sort through and pull up all this data from your subconscious to match it. So sometimes things that don't even relate together, especially based upon distorting by amplification, we think one thing relates when it has nothing to do with the other. And if I'm being picked on, right, that's what we're going to get. And still, that's also a closed system response, the blame, shame, culpability, or I'm being picked on, they're just out to get me. And that's not even the case. But based upon our experiences, that's what we've created, so it's very real to us. And it holds us captive.
Yeah, and I'll just repeat again, your subconscious stores and governs self-talk and self-image, okay? Stores and governs. And it governs your emotions. It governs your emotions. It also governs automatic learnings and functions, okay? So anything that you've learned throughout your life's experience, okay, you've learned, you've consciously responded to. And it could be when you were 5 years old, the lights got shut off. I know we've referenced this. And you either have a fear-based response and you're scared of the dark and you're, or you're like, or the person that was with you when the lights got shut off in the room, if their response to the situation was adventurous and then you melded in with their response and you took upon their response, and now when the lights get shut off you get excited, and that limbic system chemical release right there, whether it was fear or excitement or anything in between, okay, is going to compound and repeat, right? So at a very young age, you had a fear-based response. And then here, a couple of years later, or even a few days later probably, you had another similar situation which your subconscious recognizes as your limbic system releases the same chemical composition as it did when the lights got shut off and you got scared. Right? And so you are now fortifying a program of fear when the lights get shut off. And then, like I said, this is the roots of the issue when, now you're my age, 35, and a plethora of different situations in your life have had a fear-based response. Now all the leaves on this tree are all different similar fear-based response to any given event in your life. It plays a gigantic role. She's talking about an emotional response, and that's what we become addicted to, right? We become addicted to the emotional response. That's our boundaries. And today, any event that happens in my life could remind me, and I couldn't even be consciously aware of this. All of a sudden, my emotions are coming up negative, and it's a past reference thing, and I'm just allowing my subconscious mind to govern my emotions.
Well, you're just having an emotional response, so right. Based upon what's going on, even if it's not really what's going on, based upon what your conscious focus is, I'm not confident. So right. It's going to pull up all this information from your subconscious at that time to be like, I shouldn't be confident. Is my shirt okay? Is my hair okay? Like, what am I talking about? I don't even know. And that's not even probably what the emotion's about. Well, you're gonna find what you're looking for based upon your conscious focus. That's the way subconscious works. It's subconscious isn't perceiving, evaluating, judging, or deciding. It's just like, hey, conscious is like, I'm not confident right now. Let's find some stuff to give him what he's looking for. And so it's gonna pull it up, and then it's gonna become very real to you and create your reality.
Right.
Even though it's not true. 10 minutes ago, he could have felt super confident and then gets a weird emotional response. And then all of a sudden, he's just off his game and not confident. And then that's what he's going to pick up in his whole environment. It's just sending you up data to confirm what you're looking for.
Conscious gives permission. Conscious allows. Conscious alters, right? So as we consciously focus, like she said, on something that's limiting us, like a lack of confidence, my subconscious's job is to fortify whatever it is I'm consciously choosing to focus on, literally. And it'll pluck all this information from all these different files and send it up, and there's my 3, 5, 7, or 9 bits of whole data is what I'm consciously choosing to focus on. Instead of, choosing to focus on what you would rather focus on, being confident and being successful, and my abilities to portray this information to the public. I mean, really, it becomes a conscious choice, and I get to be aware of those things as I choose to sit here and portray this information to you guys, to believe I'm capable and to believe in my worthiness of doing so, and portray those worthy parts and aspects of my character versus focusing on I don't feel confident right now, and it pulling up and it just manifesting in my reality.
Well, and it becomes, as we talk about, that's part of your identity and personality. That's not what our true identity is. That's what we've come to believe through these closed system responses and sympathizing with the way we got programmed and choose to perceive these situations. And the sympathizing is indulging and practicing in beliefs that are counterintuitive to our true self. So that feedback's just coming in and it's getting stronger and stronger. And, time and addictions and memories and addictions plays a huge role in the way, we can work to become open systems. And by knowing this stuff, our timelines, time is just a standard of measurements between events. It's that space in between that's what's important with those events. And everything is interrelated interdependently, and it's all on a continuum, our past, present, and future. So anything we do in the present, it's affecting our past and our future. And we've talked about this a little bit before, but addictive systems that are closed to natural forms of feedback from the environment become addictive systems. This is when one or more of the systems has plummeted onto other parts of the system, resulting in not being completed. Addictions, whether drugs, alcohol, negative thoughts, feeling, behaviors, all have timelines they can't disassociate from. In order to change the addiction, they must be disassociated from the timeline events and or emotions controlling the addictions. Events which have caused them pain, suffering from their past, and clinging to them, keeping them stuck in their past, and oftentimes afraid of their future. Right? How many times most of us suffer from some form of anxiety, right? That's fear of the future, and it's created from a past response. So something that happened in the past, and we're stuck in the pain and hurt and suffering from that past event based upon our conscious response to that event. Instead of finding the purpose in that event and growing from it and challenging our limiting beliefs and stuff, we're stuck in, the negative memories and the negative mindsets because we're not finding the purpose in it and seeing it as a thing to grow and change from. And still, literally, this is where I get excited because this is how you can change your past. Like you hear people say, I can't change the past. It is what it is. You absolutely can change your past because you can go in and re-perceive, evaluate, judge, and decide about that. And especially from the person you are today with more knowledge and wisdom and information. And back then in the past, you might have responded right at the time. You did the best you could with what you had. And still today, as we grow and change, we have more information. So we can go into that past event that's been holding us captive, and we can re-perceive, evaluate, judge, and decide about it. And then that ripples into our present because we're doing something different in the present that creates a future. It's no different than waking up and having a bad day. You're mad, you're awake. What does the rest of your day look like? Your conscious focus is, I'm having a bad day. So subconscious is going to pull up all these things to solidify you're having a bad day. Or you're having a great day and you wake up, you find a multitude of reasons. Oh, it's beautiful outside. Look at the weather. Look at the butterflies. Oh, I got to meet this person. You're in a state of gratitude and having a good day. And still in the present having a good day. Does that change the way, oh, it's going to be a good day tomorrow, right? And working on stuff at the past and looking at stuff on the past based upon your state. And even as we look at the totality of event, which is a standard of measurement, right, is time. Time is events. It's standards of measurements. And the three elements of event is state, condition, and outcome. So as we look at these events and think we can't change our past, we absolutely can. You change the state. You change the mental state. Change your thoughts regarding that event. If you can change those thoughts into a positive one, a learning experience, it shifts that emotional response too, your emotional conditioning at that time. And then it literally changes the outcome of that event.
Right.
And it can become a growing lesson. And that's how, we get stuck in our past and we get stuck in the hurt and the pain. And then we throw it into our future and keep recreating it and living through it. And it's all of this is just, it's based upon our conscious response to it.
I had an event when I was 8 years old take place in my life that had a dramatic effect on my life circumstances for a lot of years. And when I started to learn this information and realized that I could do a simple technique called a past timeline and go and relive that event and re-perceive, evaluate, judge, and decide upon it, a really cool thing happened to me. And I'll just tell you shortly what that event was. When I was 8 years old, my dad brought me to work with him for the day, and he brought me out to lunch with a woman, and my parents were married at the time. And when he brought me out to lunch, I kind of remember feeling uncomfortable and stuff. And when we got to the car, my dad says, "Hey, don't tell your mom about lunch with Donna," right? And a couple of days later, my mom had confronted me about what was wrong with me. She could tell something was wrong with me. And in the living room, I actually remember what we were doing. We were folding clothes. And my mom had asked me what was the matter, and I broke down and I told her about my dad bringing me out to lunch with this lady. And my mom started crying, and shortly thereafter, my dad left. And my parents got divorced, and my family kind of fell apart. And at 8 years old, that had a tremendous impact on me, and I became kind of like a compulsive liar, and I became addicted to drugs and criminal thinking, and it had a dramatic impact on my life. And when I went back in a past timeline guided imagery and relived that event, my conscious perception of that day was that I ruined my family, right? And I'd carried that gestalt of emotions. I had carried that with me for a long time, years and years and years. And it compounded and repeated in a negative direction for me. It was a very huge hindrance on my life. And I got to go relive that event. And when I relived that event, I got to stand firmly upon the very fact that I told the truth. I went back and I relived that event.
Well, it's not that you're reliving it. You're looking at it from...
Well, I went back and consciously chose to see the purpose in that event for my life. And I realized that I told the truth. And I had been beating myself up for telling the truth, telling my mom the truth. And I had taken on the burdens of my family and all the things that have happened to my brothers and sisters and myself and my mom and my dad. And I had literally thought that it was my responsibility, right? That it was my fault that all of that stuff happened. And when I went back there and re-perceived, evaluated, judged, and decided upon those events, I realized, oh my God, I was just telling the truth, And it was a huge awakening for me. I mean, it was gigantic in my ability to, oh my gosh, just let go of a lot of stuff that really wasn't my obligation to carry. It didn't have anything to do with me. And it opened my eyes to this concept, time and addictions. And back then, I had consciously perceived that as a negative thing when really it was just a young Colby telling the truth. And it was a huge healing moment for me in my life. It's very big.
And they're very beneficial. I just think it's important that you didn't actually relive the event.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a huge thing, is because, you know, we should be through time people, not stuck in time or disassociated from our timelines, you know, either continually reliving our past and living in our past, or completely disassociated from our timelines, creating this own reality. And that's, you know, oh yeah, that might have been me, but you're not connected to it. So as you go in and do these techniques, you're being a through time person. So you're watching that event from a different position. So you're not actually reliving it. Right. You get to watch it through time and be evaluative in that. And that's what through time people should be, which is something we're all hopefully working towards, you know, is being evaluative. We're not living in the past. We're not living in the future. We're in the present, and we're evaluative. You know, that's part of the second element of self-view. That's, you know, we're living here. We're getting direction from our past. We're looking in on it to learn and grow from it, to change our future by being, you know, evaluative in the present. You know, you hear the term play the tape out or roll, you know, stop and take time to evaluate these things and look at it. And the beauty of, you know, because I've done a lot of past timeline work, and there's some stuff I don't want to go in and relive. Right. You know, that can be very scary to think about. You know, that stuff that's held us captive for so long, I'm not going to go in and relive it. Mm-hmm. You're doing it from a standoff point, watching the event. And you get to watch it from a more objective view instead of subjective. So you can watch it from this standpoint and like, oh, okay. You know, like you said, I was being honest in that moment instead of being tied to all those emotions and that subjectivity of actually reliving the event. Mm-hmm. You get to look at it objectively through this person now that has all this, so much more knowledge and wisdom, and, you know, and really make those adjustments. And it's a beautiful thing. And, you know, that's doing these past timelines on emotions, because that's what it's talking about. You know, people stuck in time can't get out of pain or problem. When we have experiences, thought, or emotions that continue to be foremost in our memories, we get stuck in these times of the memories. The memory doesn't have to have conscious, detailed memory. Simply the emotion brought about by the memory can hold our life captive to the time of the memory. In the subconscious, a memory is just an event. The details are not necessarily directly tied to the same program model or part of the brain as the event is. The details are sought out by the brain when the event is pulled into conscious. And if you were thinking of an event, it is pulled into your conscious. Oftentimes we get stuck in our past time. And in the subconscious, we experience our present and our future and past memories stored in the subconscious. This makes it virtually impossible to actually experience our present moments or even imagine a future to be much different than the past we are stuck in. You can literally go in and do a past timeline. You don't have to have the actual event, you know, depression, anxiety, abandonment. You can go in and your brain knows the first time you felt that. That's created this ripple effect in your life. And you can go back and clean up your past and do past timeline work and readjust that emotion, change that emotional conditioning by re-perceiving, evaluating, and judging and deciding. And doing these future timelines as well, it should be a healthy balance of some, you know. If I have more positive things out in my future and I'm doing future timeline work, it makes it a lot easier to work on my past. Because if I'm stuck in my past and the pain and sufferings, I have nothing positive to look forward to. So by doing some future timeline work first and putting some positive things out there, and it creates this ripple effect. As I start to clean up my past, it shifts my present and my future. And if I put things out in the future, I've got things to look forward to that I can start cleaning up some of that past. And you can go in and do past timeline work on positive things and gain more information and knowledge from that positive experience. It doesn't just have to be the negatives. There's so much information in our timelines and these events that we might not have been aware of at the time.
Well, and if you're wondering about, you know, what we're talking about, doing past timeline work or future timeline work, or, you know, what is that? The beautiful part about our subconscious mind is it cannot tell the difference between a real or a vividly imagined experience, right? It just takes everything literally, whatever it is, and conscious alters, conscious allows, conscious gives permission. So when you consciously choose to vividly imagine an experience where you float outside of your body and you float back onto and you imagine a timeline and a memory present itself and it floats up and you can consciously kind of play this thing out in your conscious mind, right? And the memory floats up and there it is and there's the memory and you're over here from a safe different distance and you get to re-perceive, evaluate, judge, and decide, like Whitney's saying. Your subconscious, it does a really cool thing. It allows you to get the value, the purpose, the different perception from your life's experiences now. Like I said, that thing happened to me when I was 8 years old. I've had a plethora of events, right, that have happened in my life that have given me wisdom and knowledge and purpose, and a lot of them have been difficult and hard. Still, I've persevered and prevailed, and now looking back from all of my experience, I get to go look back at this memory when I was 8 years old and say, oh, and find the value in it and the purpose and the things that it added to my life now. And it's an amazing thing that I consciously get to imagine this experience in my subconscious mind. Once I get all that value out of that memory and put it back on my timeline where the original memory floated up, and all the stuff that doesn't have value and that's no longer useful to me or no longer serves me, I get to imagine that floating up and melting away in the sunshine and pouring out energy to the world, And then I get to add that value where that original memory was, and it has a ripple effect on my entire timeline. That's the magic, if you will, of re-perceiving, evaluating, judging, and deciding upon these past events and creating future events. Your subconscious mind takes them literally. It thinks that they really happened.
Well, and all this is coming about to working to get us to change to a state of wholeness. Pain serves one purpose, to let you know something's wrong and address that point of pain, and you address that point of anxiety, it goes away. As soon as you address that point of anxiety, there's nothing more to have anxiety about because you've addressed it. But we work so much and build it up in our head and create so much more chaos instead of just addressing the point of anxiety, and then it dissipates. Mm-hmm. And changing to a state of wholeness and pain and these emotions that come up in the present. And once again, that's the difference between incremental change and transformative change, right? You get to work on it and address it in the present, and it's probably pulling up all this other stuff you get to work on in the present. This guy made me mad right here because he said something. Absolutely work on that issue with that person and what that triggered for you. And still, if you're being open and theorizing about it, it's coming up because of a past reference, right? And it's coming up so we can grow and change and make these identity level changes. And changing to a state of wholeness does not stop us from doing a negative thing, and in order to choose to not do anything or choose, we have to have a positive thing to choose to do. And choice is the ultimate purpose, not control. It literally gives us choice. And when we try to control, we don't have control, we have choice. We can't control what other people do. We can't control our environment. And when we think we are controlling our environment or people out here, it's because we don't feel in control in here. And it's really about choice and practicing choice in our life. I have choice right now to respond differently. If I'm, not taking action in the present and I'm sitting here questioning this emotion, and then I can deal with the thing that came up in the present, I can go do past work that's going to ripple effect so I can approach things different in the future. And that's what we talk about too. You probably did approach it the best you knew how at that time, and it was right at that time. It doesn't mean it was wrong in the way you approached it. You did the best you could with what you had. Right. Just sometimes like with our parents, they did the best they could with what they had. But because of it creates this ripple effect on our timeline, and based upon our conscious response to it, plays out into our timeline, right? That's fixing it on an individual level, a family level, an organizational level. Absolutely. Right? And there's purpose in all of that. Right. We get to help ourselves, we get to help our families grow and change, and still what they choose to do with it is their choice. But it creates this huge ripple effect, and really it just fortifies and gives us more choice in our life, because we do have more choice because we've gained knowledge and wisdom from these things, and it's not holding us captive anymore.
Absolutely. And the best part about, my experience with that whole situation is that when I did go back and work on that, it freed up opportunities for me to, rekindle relationships with my dad and my mom and my brothers and sisters, and to see all of their situations honestly too. I viewed all of their situations for a lot of years as my fault, and so healing me on an individual level also just helped open up the door for me to, forgive and let go and have the love and the compassion and the purpose that I've been seeking for so long. The relationship with my dad that I've been fighting for years, yet holding myself back from, because there was all this, trash in my past that I had been perceiving, evaluating, judging, and deciding all wrong. It had been an extreme negative influence on my life. And as soon as I was able to really take this material seriously and actually go back there and like we said, read, perceive, evaluate, judge, and decide it upon, it allowed me individually to be able to reopen doors that have been closed to me for so long in my life. And now my dad helps work with this company, and we have a great relationship, and it's amazing, and it's a direct reflection on, my willingness to actually go back and look at some of my situations in life that have been affecting me unnecessarily for far too long, and we get addicted to these emotions. And unfortunately, when these emotions happen in our present, we might not know where they're coming from. We might not have any idea. We're just having a bad day. And it could be, 20 years back, and events that have happened since that event back 20 years ago that have just created this and on this day 20 years ago at this time I experienced this event, and now it's manifesting in my present life because I haven't dealt with it, and it's just still hindering me, And it's a beautiful thing when you can really look at it and work through these issues.
The more we fight it, it becomes the what you resist persists, and it's feedback. And one of the things that helps me work through those, because I do create the anxiety and the fear of going in and working on some of those hard things. It's you hear people say all the time, what's the purpose? What's my purpose in life? What's the purpose of when you were resisting these things that are coming up, you're literally fighting the purpose. And it's working to get you to go in and find the purpose in that and integrate it into your system to become a state of wholeness. All this stuff is designed for us, our success and our growth and potential. And sometimes it's hard to see those things in the hurt and the pain. But if you can go in and really look at it and know that this is all for our growth and purpose, and if you're not doing anything with it, you're literally fighting the purpose that you're working so hard to find or seek out.